Good afternoon, morning, or evening, whatever time it is for you. I just wanted to give you guys a quick run through of the content that you will be looking at this week. We are going to be talking about soil, different types of earth, as far as is it sand, is it what type of soil? Anyways, so what is soil? Soil is weathered rock. We've talked about weathering before, but again, weathering is just breaking down rock into smaller particles, and that can happen with wind, water, or ice. It's just breaking it down into smaller pieces. So, weathered rock, organic matter. These would be things that used to be living, air, and water. Okay. And how can you tell the soil type? So to determine the type of soil, you have to examine the different particles. And the way you do that is that you wet the soil and you rub it between your fingers to like see what type of particles there are in the soil. Um, So, weathered rock, we just talked about. Organic matter would be decaying plants and animals, or humus. Sorry, not hummus. Sound hungry, right? Um, anyway, so decaying things that would be organic matter that lives in soil, or as part of soil, air, and water. Where is soil found? You can find the soil in the prairie. This is going to have a lot of loam, which is a great mix of nutrients and everything that make it really good farming soil. The desert has sandy soil that's really dry. The forest has dark topsoil or loam, also pretty good for growing plants. Coastal South has clay, which has iron minerals, rust, a rusty red color. So those are kind of like the different types of soils and where they are found. So what is weathered rocks? That is pieces of rocks that were broken down by wind, water, and ice. Um, so again, that could be water gets in there in the crack or it freezes and expands. The water like breaks it down over time. Wind breaks it down over time, but it's just broken down rock. Organic matter is dead plants or animals that decay and decompose. This is where a lot of the nutrients come from. When we talked about decomposers, that would be where organic matter kind of comes from and how it's like added to soil. Um, let's see here. So we have like a if then situation here. Um, when wet, if the soil feels rough, then it's gravel. If it's when it's wet, if it feels gritty, then it's sand. When it's wet, if it feels slippery and smooth, it's silt. If it feels sticky when wet, it's clay. That's kind of like a most likely situation. It's not always the rule, but it's kind of like the usual situation. So we have 5 different types of soil that we will talk about. We have gravel, boom, sand, clay, silt, and loam. Loam is the best. Okay, and this chart right here will be pretty useful for you in your assignment. I am going to give you a copy of this slideshow so that you can reference it, but this would be a good tool for you. The way it works is it gives you the 5 different types of soil that we're looking at, and it's showing you that loam is made of these 3 put together, and it's the best. But anyways, it kind of describes each type. So it shows you like the different um, attributes of gravel. So it has pebbles of rocks as far as their particle size. It's rough texture. It's gray in color. No water stays. So if you were to fill up 5 different containers and one of them had gravel in it and you poured water into the container and there's a hole in the bottom, all of the water would come out. The gravel's not going to hold any of the water. The ability to grow plants, there's not any, so it's going to lose all the water and there's not any nutrients, so there's not any ability to grow plants. Sand has large particle sizes. It feels like salt type size. It's a gritty when it's rubbed. It's a light brown. It's very little water stays. So again, if you were to fill up a container with sand and there's like a hole in the bottom of it, very little of the water is going to stay in the sand. It's going to lose water and not have nutrients. Therefore, it's not really going to grow plants. Silt is small in size and it feels like flour. It's silky, smooth, slippery when wet. It's light gray. Some of the water is going to stay. If you pour water through it, some of it stays. So ability to grow plants is there's going to be some water, some nutrients. It erodes easily, and that's erodes is talking about erosion. And remember, we talked about that erosion is exiting particles, so particles that are being washed away. So that means that if there's water moving through, that silt is going to be carried off pretty easily. So not necessarily a super positive trait when you're trying to grow plants. Clay is the smallest size in particles. It's like dust. It's sticky when it's wet, red or yellow. Too much water stays and does not drain. So if you were to fill it up, fill a container with clay and pour water through it, it's not going to go anywhere. Like, it just stays in there and it gets super heavy. And so there's going to be too much water and it's not going to drain at all. So since there's too much water and there's no nutrients and it compacts when it dries, it's not really going to grow plants very well. And then we have loam, which is the best of the best. And it's the mix of all three. It has all three textures, dark brown or black, allows water to drain and also keeps nutrients. So it's not that like the plants are sitting in water. However, they are able to have water run through the loam. And it also keeps nutrients, and it's the best for plant growth. So there you go. Your takeaways from this: how do we determine the texture of the soil? You're going to rub the particles between your fingers. What is organic material in soil? That's decaying plants or animals. Soil is made up of weathered rock, air, water, and organic matter. Weathering is the breaking down of rocks into particles through wind, water, and or ice. An area that supports a lot of plants most likely has a large amount of loam soil. The smaller the soil particles, the more water it retains. If the farmer grows more plants in a field, it can be due to having a soil type that drains well. So you want water to be able to move through it pretty well. And gravel holds no water. So again, you're going to want to reference this as you move through your assignment this week. Please let me know if you have any questions. I would love to help you. And that is it for now.